and we've got a lot to cover today. I am your host, Mike Thomas, and I'm going to go over a couple of things that we're going to cover the fights in the next 2 weeks. But let's look at the fight schedule. We've got Triple G versus Murata in Japan, Garcia versus Tagoe in Texas the same day, Lubin Fundora, Mai versus Han, Benn versus Van Heerden, and also Spence versus Ugas. Let's start with Spence. We have got Ugas. Number one, Errol Spence Jr. versus Ugas in Texas on the 16th of April. Massive fights, a lot to cover, a lot going on in boxing right now. So let's crack on. Once again, like the Renegade Master, I am here with the Gateshead Kid Galahad.
Thanks for having me back, Mike.
How you doing, mate?
Appreciate it.
So let's get into it, man. We've got a lot to cover. Errol Spence Jr. versus Ugas. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
I think it's a fantastic fight. I think it's a really, really good fight. The only one final thing I wanted to say about Ugas, which is actually going to make this quite a difficult fight for Errol Spence, is in the Pacquiao fight. He was able to out-punch and outwork Pacquiao and just rack up those sort of punch stats.
Yeah.
And in the Porter fight, I noticed he was able to be the counter-puncher. So he's well schooled enough in boxing to do both. He doesn't have one style that he sticks to rigidly. So I think it's going to be a process of Spence breaking him down over probably the whole fight, to be honest with you. But I think that's what makes this fight intriguing. That being said, I don't think you guys can win.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then moving on to the return of King Rai against a Ghana boy, Tagoe, I think he's pronounced. I had to look him up because I had no idea who he was. And they are fighting again in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas. That's going to be an amazing fight. There's also Triple G, I think, on the same day. So that's going to be a huge night. I'm looking forward to that. How do you see that fight going?
I can't see him coming back, King Rai coming back from a long layoff, Ryan Garcia coming back from a long layoff, and they put him in with like an absolute killer. I think this fight is probably tailor-made for him in a sense, to make him look good, to announce his comeback, and then he's going to be on to bigger things after that. I think with Ryan Garcia, I don't know if you know this, but he split from Canelo's team, which obviously, you know, Canelo's like one of the, as you mentioned in our previous podcast, Canelo's like the hardest worker in boxing. So the fact that him and Ryan Garcia aren't seeing eye to eye, it is slightly worrying, because I think it's clear to anybody who watches boxing that Ryan Garcia has everything that it takes to be a world champion in terms of physical attributes. He has power, he has speed, he has punch selection. It's what's in here and what's in here that kind of worries me about him. Yeah. I don't know if he has the desire or the mentality when it gets tough, and that's what I'm going to be looking to see over the next couple of fights.
Yeah, I saw an interview with him. It was Michelle Joy Phelps, and she was asking him, "Hey, how do you see yourself fighting Haney?" He was like, "Oh, definitely not going to fight Haney." And his face was like,
why would you even say that?
His face expression was like, "I'm not going to fight Haney." I'm like, well, you surely want to fight the best people in the division. So that tells me everything.
He's a world champion in your division.
Where
so, I mean, you want to fight him.
Mentality is not quite there. Obviously, you know, he's had mental health problems, so we don't want to fully, you know, like disregard that, because I know that that's been tough for him. He's been through a lot of depression and stuff. I think the thing with Canelo is such a hard worker. I mean, he just also said that Andy Ruiz left his gym as well because he wasn't training hard enough for Canelo's likes, because Canelo is just like non-stop training, hard working all the time. And I think just called Andy Ruiz lazy, didn't they? So obviously,
like, both of these boys, and I'm again, like, I totally relate to what Ryan Garcia is talking about in terms of depression. I would never make light of something like that. Yeah. But same with Andy Ruiz. I mean, Andy Ruiz lost his world title because he came in way out of shape. Like, and you know, in Saudi Arabia against Anthony Joshua. I mean, he could have went on to be in these big heavyweight clashes, and we could still be talking about him to this day. He could have made millions and millions, but he won that one fight, bought a big Rolls Royce, ate everything under the sun, and just went and stomped the place out. So it's like Canelo does have a point, in that sense. And I think Randy Orton is a great fighter. Like, I think his hand speed's phenomenal, and I think he does have a future in the heavyweight division. But Canelo's kind of got a point. Like, if you're gonna, you can't play boxing. Like, this is a contact sport, and if you're not putting everything into it, you're gonna, at a certain level, you're gonna get fucked up. So
it's also like mostly mental as well. And if you think and I don't want to discredit Anthony Joshua, because this is the thing with Anthony Joshua, we don't know how he's going to react to his loss against Usyk, because his fight against Andy Ruiz, I don't want to discredit his tactics, but also Andy Ruiz just ate a bunch of cheeseburgers and just turned up to the defense, and just like, he'd been drinking and partying, and then he just turned up and just easily lost on points. So it's hard to say, well, is Joshua going to have the right tactics against Usyk's rematch? I don't know. But going back to Andy Ruiz, mentally, he wasn't prepared. He wasn't prepared mentally to it's one thing winning the title, but keeping it for a long time is another thing. And I think it's all mental, and stay ready so you don't have to get ready, as they always say. But I think this is gonna, like you say, I think it's gonna be an easy comeback fight for King Rai. Obviously he hasn't fought for over a year, and so it's just kind of a nice, easy one for him to come back. And talking of being inactive, Triple G, talking about Triple G, the forgotten man of boxing. He's not fought in 2 years. I think 2020 was his last fight. I'd almost forgot. I mean, I love Triple G, and I really hope Triple G and Canelo have another one. But Triple G is fighting Japanese fighter Murata in Japan. Murata also hasn't had a fight for 2 years. He fought some random Canadian guy last time, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I think it was 2019. He fought some random Canadian guy who's like kind of average, middle of the range. His record is kind of juiced up. It looks a bit better, but I see it's going to be a good fight. I would say I would probably, go towards Triple G.
Gold at the 2012 Olympic Games. So he's got a good amateur pedigree. And I think it's one of those, because both fighters are inactive. So there's going to be a feeling out process.
Yeah.
And I think it's a potential banana skin for Triple G, because he's, like you say, he's been out of the ring. He's aging slightly. I don't want to be disrespectful, because he's a beast, but it's like this could. He's in a hostile country. Apparently Murata is a mega star over in Japan as well. So it could be one of those where it's like, unless Triple G can close down the ring, which we've seen him do numerous times, if he can't close down the ring and kind of get a stoppage, I could see a universe where Murata can outbox him slightly. Triple G has never been the kind of guy who's had the fastest feet in the world. So I feel like if Murata kind of approaches it in a tactical manner where he's on the back foot, he's slipping and sliding, there is a way for him to actually frustrate Triple G because of the inactivity. That being said, though, power is the last thing to go on a fighter. And despite Triple G having looked not as impressive as the Triple G of yesteryear, he can still knock out him. Like, I feel like he could tear down a building with his shots. You know what I mean? Like, so it's going to be an interesting fight, and I think the inactivity is going to play a big part in it.
Yeah, and I think he's also got that kind of Kazakhstani kind of no emotion, hard edge mentality. He's also like he can take a punch. Like, one thing I remember about him watching his fights previously, he can take a lot of hits, and he's got one of them faces where you can't tell he's been hit. He just takes punches.
He's got such a good chin on him. He's got such a good chin.
Yeah. and some serious power, like you say. So yeah, I think it might be more of a close fight. Definitely more of a close fight than the Ryan Garcia fight, because I see that just totally one-sided to Ryan Garcia. But I think in this one, it's going to be a lot closer. I would say that Triple G has the edge. Like, he was hard done by, and you could definitely argue his case in that. So I can understand kind of what he seemed like he had a bit of a lack of passion for a while, but I'm glad that he's back.
Yeah.
I really hope that he has his third fight, and hopefully once he gets this win out of his way, he can move on to sort of bigger and better things as well.
That's another thing actually as well that I forgot to mention, like the fact that he's pretty much got his signed fight with Canelo waiting. If he wins this, that might just kind of spur him on to fucking destroy Murata. You know what I mean? That's the thing. I kind of feel a bit bad for Triple G, because obviously Canelo's went off and conquered the world. Those two fights were very close. The first one was very controversial, in my opinion. And like Canelo's went on and just like completely conquered the world, become a superstar. And Triple G's kind of almost waited for that fight, rather than kind of making his own way. And he's been getting older and older, and time has been on Canelo's side. And I never thought Canelo would revisit that. And I think Canelo has picked the perfect. I think if they fight a third time, I think it will be starkly different to both fights that came previously. So I think, I'm not sure how he's going to perform against Murata, but I think the fact that he's got that clash waiting with Canelo in September, I think that will be motivation enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, so finally moving on the 16th of April in Manchester, we've got CONORBENN, who is very kind of eager at the moment, fighting against Chris Van Heerden, who was kind of ranked around 19 in the boxing rankings. Both of them are kind of been out. Chris Van Heerden hasn't had a fight since Boots Ennis, and that was like ended with a head clash. So he's kind of been a bit unlucky. Well, I think Ennis was technically way better, and he was obviously going to win that fight. But yeah, I wouldn't count out Chris Van Heerden, but I do see CONORBENN to win that one. What do you reckon?
I think it's a similar fight to the Ryan Garcia fight. I think it's a fight where CONORBENN's supposed to look good. You know what I mean? Which those fights can be tricky, because obviously if you're supposed to go in and dismantle a guy, the longer the fight goes, the more the more sort of tension it builds. But it's not to the level of the Ryan Garcia fight, in terms of, he is world ranked, and people have heard of him, and he has been in higher profile fights than Ryan Garcia's opponent. But it's a fight that has been selected to make CONORBENN look good, to push his momentum, to build his confidence even further. And it's one of those where I think CONORBENN's ready for those big names, those like now.
It's so funny.
The fact that you what, sorry?
I was going to say, it's really funny. Like, every time you see him after a fight, he just knocks someone out, and he's like, I'm ready to take on anyone. I'll fight Tank Davis. I want, and he's always calling. He's always calling
accent as well. It's like, bro, you're from Australia. Like, I hate to say it to you, bro, but like, you know what I mean? You're from Australia. I don't know what the fuck. Like, you know what I mean? I'm saying he's from Australia. He's from Australia is what I'm saying. And it's like,
he's got such a strong Cockney accent every time. He's like, yeah, mate. I'll fight Tank Davis Jr. Yeah, I'll fight him all, mate. And then his management team is always like, no, you want to be fighting somebody 20th in the world, or someone in the top 20, but at the bottom end. Just calm down a bit, because he's so eager to fight everybody. And I watched this thing the other day saying that he can't box, but I think, and Pitt saying that he's been lucky to get all wins recently, but I think he's good, and I see him comfortably winning. Van Heerden, though, he's had a bit of a tough time. He's from he's from South Africa, and he's had his dad got murdered, got shot by this guy who just got out on bail for $300. Like, he was released on bail and then shot his dad, and then his brother, who's like 17, was in the car. I watched this interview with him, and I just thought, God, he's got this kind of, he doesn't care. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
fight, that's always a dangerous fighter, someone that just does not care anymore. So he isn't somebody you can just completely write off. Conor Benn's got to be up for it. He's going to be on game. And obviously, Eddie Hearn sees Conor Benn as like his perfect wonder boy. He's almost like the new Anthony Joshua. So he's trying to manage his career like a K-pop band, like where he's just perfectly getting him the right opponents. So he just gets bigger and better and better. And his opponents are kind of a little bit harder, but he just looks better every time because he's trying to see Conor Benn as like the next big thing, which potentially he could be. We don't know at this point, but he's definitely ticking all the boxes and everything. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I was going to say as well, I think it's a massive stretch to say that he can't. Like, you know, people saying that are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there was a time because he had a limited amateur career that he was a bit raw and he was kind of like Yeah, exactly. So he was just so aggressive, and he had some tough fights early on, if I remember correctly, as well, because of the fact that he was just so raw. But like, he's made massive improvements, and he can definitely he can box. He can definitely box.
He's also only 24. I think he 24. He's got so much potential. Like the
young man,
He started getting amazing once his dad left and actually went to Australia. That's when he started like dedicating his life to it, and he just like just absolutely blitzed. And he's massive improved boxer now from how he was previously. So I agree.
And I think Eddie Hearn's learned quite a lot from the Joshua, the way he built Joshua as well. I think it's funny as well because people say Joshua can't box, and it's like, the guy's an Olympic gold medalist. Like, have a day off. You know what I mean? Like, have a day off. Yeah, I understand he's probably not the best heavyweight boxer ever, or the best heavyweight boxer of this era, but the man can box. All right, don't give me that shit. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, I think Eddie Hearn has learned quite a lot from building Joshua too quickly, because as I touched on previously, I think a lot of people were crying out for Conor Benn to be fighting those big names now. And I think Eddie Hearn kind of knew that once you take that step into the into that like sort of world class, there's no that you can't then fight Van Heerden after you fought.
Exactly.
I probably mispronounced his name there, but you can't fight him. You can't go back.
It's like a glass ceiling. Once you're through it, that's it. You can't go back down. So you've got to just fight who's there. And so people are giving Anthony Joshua a lot of criticism, but he's also fighting Usyk and Tyson Fury, and like, these are the best people in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to give him a bit of credit. Like,
it's
hilarious. Never back down from a fight either.
Yeah. I mean,
you could have avoided Usyk.
No, I think it's crazy because, like, I think of the last video that the last IFL interview that was posted with Anthony Joshua. All of the comments were like, he needs to retire. And I was like, because he's had two losses. One of them was a bit of a bad one against Andy Ruiz. I think his inexperience showed he just went for the kill when he shouldn't have and got caught. But I think with Usyk, he's fighting an elite boxer. Like, he's fighting like one of the best boxers, the best cruiserweight, you know.
It's like Evander Holyfield as well. When you go from cruiserweight to heavyweight, they're just naturally a little bit more on the feet, a bit faster. You know, heavyweights aren't supposed to.
Well, speed kills.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. You talk about Evander Holyfield. Usyk is the next big, amazing, you know, cruiserweight going up to heavyweight. But yeah, you talk about that interview he did. That got over 1 million views, didn't it? That was like, he doesn't do many interviews. So like, when he does an interview, he does it with like Kugan Cassius or somebody. And a lot of the comments, because there was 1 million views, you got a lot of casual people, just a lot of the casual fans that are just like, oh, he's useless, he should retire, all these kind of negative comments. But yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing year. It'll be amazing. Can't wait, obviously, to see Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. That's going to be amazing. The kind of result of that is going to lead on to next steps with Usyk and Joshua. And obviously, hopefully that fight goes ahead as well with all the situation over there in Ukraine. But hopefully, fingers crossed, it all goes to plan. But what a massive year for boxing this year. So it's already huge in April. Well, yeah, is there anything else?
No, I think even if Joshua loses, which I'll be honest with you, I'm a big fan of Anthony Joshua, but I don't think he's going to win this fight against Usyk. I hope even if he loses that he doesn't listen to the haters, because there's no way you're telling me that an Olympic gold medalist, a guy who's packed out Wembley, like a guy who's fought all over the world, fights for a living anyway, which is crazy. It's a crazy profession to be in. Like, you don't tell a man like that to quit. He's not shot at all. He's had a couple of bad results. So we should keep some perspective, I think.
And I hope his because you could see the first one, he mentally wasn't there. So I hope that he comes into the second fight mentally ready. We want the 2018 AJ, his height and his reach advantage. He's got everything advantage apart from speed, obviously, technically, and speed. But if he comes in and throw, you could see Usyk had a massive cut above his eyebrow as well. Yeah. And he said after the fight, I took some really, he took a lot of hits. And I think because he was so worried about the counter from Usyk and he was just trying to box the whole time, he just stayed too safe. He gave Usyk way too much respect. And I don't mind if he loses and he's giving it everything he's got. Yeah. You could tell in the first fight, he's not really giving it everything. He's not, asking somebody before the fight, how should I beat this guy? He asked some random guy in the ring.
Security or some shit.
Security guard. What are you doing?
Yeah, he was like, mate, I'm just here guarding the door. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I've just been hired today, mate. I don't actually know how to box. Like, I've no idea.
Training for a year and a half, and then he was on the GB squad, and then so it was almost like he got fast tracked because of his physical attributes and stuff like that. And like, I just think I would like to see him lean into those physical attributes. Like, you're so big and muscle bound. You're not a 12-round fighter. At a high pace, you're never a 12-round fighter. Yeah, you might be able to beat the shit out of Joe Parker for 12 rounds because you're fighting at your pace and you're dictating the fight. But if you're fighting a competitive fight, you're not a 12-round fighter. So just fucking go for it, man. Take those chances.
You look at his physique and you think he's just perfect for boxing. He's just like naturally got that athletic body. He's 6'6". He just looks like he should be a boxer. He's got that range, everything, right? But he's got a Mike Tyson kind of physique. He needs to be going in and finishing people off in 3 rounds. And all of this thing of like, I'm going to outbox. He can't outbox Usyk. So he's got to.
And even if he did, that's what I found so confusing about that whole plan, because like his coach is like such a world-renowned coach. Like, I'm pretty sure his coach is head of the GB squad and stuff like that. So he's like a really successful coach and coached Carl Froch and everything like that. But I was like, what kind of stupid plan is this, right? Even if you do have the skill set to outbox Usyk, which you clearly don't, you don't have the gas tank. He's a smaller guy. He's a more nimble guy. So even if you could match him skill for skill, the likelihood is you're going to get tired before he does, and then he's going to take over. So it's like, I didn't understand that at all.
I don't know if you saw Tyson Fury recently meeting up with Thor, and Thor had a fight with Eddie Hall, like this two of the strongest men in the world. Yeah. So after the fight, Tyson Fury came in, he had his shirt off and Thor was there. And obviously Thor's like 7'1" or something. Tyson Fury's 6'9". And Tyson Fury was like, oh my God, look at my body compared to yours. And Thor's like beefed up like a beefcake. And he was like, what are you like? How long can you last before you like gas out and you tank out? And he's like, probably like 6 rounds. So he can do like 6 rounds, and then because his muscle requires so much oxygen to keep him going, he just dies out. And that's why like Tyson Fury has that second tank with all that extra love handle fat, because he just burns the extra fat from his like fat storage, and he keeps going. He's got like a second wind. And you see him get knocked down and come up and like win the round against Wilder.
It's actually counterproductive to have all those muscles. As
you saw Joshua get really lean, and Andy Ruiz go the opposite way in the second fight. They got really super lean. It was like, oh my god, it didn't even look like Joshua. He hadn't cut his hair for ages. You could tell he was like focused on winning back his title. He's grown an afro. He looked like he hadn't got a fresh trim like he normally does.
Of like, I think he's kind of, I think he's sick of people talking shit. I think he might have even said that. I'm just like, he was asked like, oh, you seem to be a bit irritated, and he was like, well, I'm just sick of
to Usyk, and all of a sudden, like everyone that's like bigged him up is now suddenly saying, oh, you're useless, you're terrible, you fight like a robot, you can't box, all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, hang on a minute, like. In the wider scale, like he's not useless, but if we're talking about the top 2-3 tier level in the world, he's not looking great. He's not looking great right now. But that you can't just be like, oh, he's useless, mate. He can't box.
Retire. Give up. I think a lot, like there's a lot to be said about Joshua as well, in the sense where we all know he's vulnerable. Like we all know that, like he got dropped by Dylan White in the amateurs. Andy Ruiz, but he seems to have a lot of heart. Like, what I mean by that is Andy Ruiz knocked him down multiple times, and multiple times he got back up. That's a hard thing to do. Andy Ruiz can hit hard, and he hits very fast. And there's nothing worse, because if you remember the Ruiz fight, Joshua had just dropped him, and he went in and he got caught. He went in trying to like blow his wad, and got caught. And then he got back up, and then he got caught again. And then I think the round ended, and then and then they had a little back and forth, and then Ruiz started taking over and hurting him again. But it takes heart to do that. Like it takes heart to get up when you're getting battered around the ring like that. But he's also fighting heavyweights. You know, he's not getting hit on the chin by someone's nana, and he's folding. You know, he's getting hit by elite heavyweights, or at least world level heavyweights. You know.
Yeah. All right, well, good conversation, man. Another episode of Another Round. Thank you all, and good night.